All right, Dr. Bauer, I see you. We are live for our November community conversations.
Great, Bob. Thank you so much for the quick introduction there. Those who are familiar with our community conversations may notice that my backdrop looks a little different. We are doing this month's community conversations. I am at North Penn High School right now because it has been well publicized that our administrative building, the ESC, or Educational Services Center, is without power and has been since Wednesday. We're hoping for a resolution today. Lansdale Electric is working really hard to resolve the matter, and we hope to be back in the office on Monday. But today is Friday, November 22nd, and this is the second installment of community conversations in a bit of a different format. We mentioned last month that we would typically come together in a place in the community, and there would be just a few people there. So we're trying different ways to get more people involved. So this year we're going to have these live conversations and have different groups of people and different focuses or foci for the conversation itself. So this month we're going to talk about school safety and partnerships with our local law enforcement officers. So we do have two departments represented today, as well as our own internal security department. But I want to point out that we have wonderful partners in our local police departments. We have 6 municipalities that we work with in all of our 18 buildings, and just really pleased this morning to introduce. First, I have Mr. Brandon Roan. He is the coordinator of emergency management and safe schools here in the North Penn School District. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Dr. Bauer.
Next, I have the chief of Talmenson Township Police Department, Chief Tim Troxel. Good morning, Chief.
Morning, Dr. Bauer. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And you guys can call me Todd here. This is a conversation. Let's have, we can avoid those formalities. And then lastly, I'm going to get this right. I have the crime prevention and community policing officer and also our DARE officer in the North Penn School District, Officer Brant Whistler. Good morning, Brant.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have all of you. So the whole point today is really just to talk about the relationship between the school district and our police departments and security, ways in which we work together, some of the challenges that we kind of come across in that work, and our efforts to keep kids and our community safe. So with that, I'm going to kind of throw it to Mr. Roan to get the ball rolling here. He's the guy who works in the school district, and then we'll kind of bounce around to our police departments. But Brandon, let's just start with some things that perhaps the average community member doesn't know about the relationship between the school district and the police departments, right? So everybody knows when there's an emergency, you dial 911, you call the police, you ask them to come help. But what are some other ways in which the North Penn School District engages with, say, Talmenson or Upper Gwinnett police departments?
Sure, that's a great question, and happy to answer it. There are a number of ways. We are consistently collaborating and conversating around school safety in the North Penn School District. One of the ways, most recently, folks may remember the trunk or treat event at the high school here, where we had representation of not only our own school safety department, but our local police departments with the community, engaging in conversation and giving out candy, of course. 'Tis the reason for the season. But we do those type of things, those community events often, and then we are also always collaborating on various types of not only events, but preventive measures in ways that we can communicate information back and forth to make sure that we try to stay ahead of any potential problem before it really becomes a response from one of our 6 agencies. So we work together pretty much daily. I speak to a representative from one of the 6 municipalities daily for a variety of those reasons that I just mentioned.
Great. Thank you for that. And I guess another reason that the community would assume, other than calling 911, is DARE, right? And let me see if I can get this right. I am a DARE graduate. when I was in elementary school. I actually went to school in the Souderton School District, but it is drug abuse resistance education. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes. All right. I still got it. So Officer Whistler, can you talk to me? Like, what does DARE look like in 2024? What's the cadence or frequency in which you're in our schools, and which schools specifically in the North Penn School District?
So I am currently restricted to the Upper Gwinnett area. So I handle Gwennor Elementary. I also handle Gwinnett Square Elementary, and then one of the private elementary schools as well at Corpus Christi. But with the North Penn schools specifically, the big message we try and send has changed a little from when you may have had it, I'm going to say in the last 10 to 15 years. But more recently it's changed to...
It was way longer than that, but thank you.
It's more changed to a approach to making good decisions. You're going to be presented with challenges in life. You're going to be presented with conflicts. And what we are trying to instill in today's youth is empowering them to realize what their strengths are and then be able to use those strengths to help them make those decisions. So DARE has taken on a second meaning beyond the one you presented, and now it's a process that the children can go through in their heads. It's define, assess, react, and evaluate. With that, the point being, you define your problem, decide what your choices are, pick a choice, and then decide if that was the best choice for you. And it is a fluid process that we teach the students, so that as they come up with this conflict and things change, they're able to move back and forth in those steps and help figure out the best decision they can make for themselves.
Love it. Define, assess, react, evaluate. I think
define, assess, respond, evaluate.
Respond. Excuse me.
That may have been my.
No, that's okay. That's I think that those are good words of wisdom, like in life, and in parenting and teaching and learning. So I love it. Okay, another acronym for DARE. Okay, so Chief Troxel, I have the perhaps advantage here and knowing a little bit more about the Talmenson Township Police Department than I do the others, just because I was high school principal a while ago. And I always found my relationship with the local police department to be not mine, but like North Penn High School in particular, a relationship to be great, where you guys were parked here every day. There were cars here. Sometimes it was for police business, but other times it was just for community policing. And I think you guys would just park a car out front of the school and walk around the building. So can you talk a little bit about the ways in which you empower your officers to just be in our schools and build relationships with kids and staff and get to know the buildings, those types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I know when I first came on the job, just learning my way around the building was, I got lost a few times where I was kind of doing, Big Ben. But our officers are all encouraged to be in all the schools as much as possible. Obviously, the high school campus is the biggest one probably in the district, most people, most concentration. So we encourage our officers, as I think all the departments do, to be out and at least get into each one of the schools within Talmenson every single day, just to be there, to have a presence, to walk around, to be there in a non-response mode where we aren't there for a problem or an issue. To help, number one, the officers, obviously, we want them learning the layouts of the schools and knowing if somebody calls for something going on at a particular spot. Obviously, we want them to be familiar enough that they can get there quickly and know exactly where they're going. But also just to have those, again, those non-response interactions with the students where we can have officers chatting on a personal level or being seen as just a human being, as opposed to somebody who's there to potentially get somebody in trouble or because of a medical emergency or one of the many reasons we may be called to the school. So I think it's very important to make those relationships and have that comfort level. If we only ever showed up when there was a problem, I think there would be a lot more skepticism for any kind of communications with us, as opposed to, oh yeah, we see the officers walking through here all the time. They're just here to hang out, to make sure everybody's safe, to chat, to answer questions that may come up. And anything we can do within the school community or within the community in general, where people feel more comfortable being around officers and interacting with officers, it just helps make our job easier. It helps increase everybody's understanding, and it makes things a little bit smoother when you do get to those rough spots where you have to be dealing with something that might not be the most pleasant of things. That I've seen these guys, they've been around. I know they're going to be okay handling things, and they're not just coming up in here to throw handcuffs on people and make lives miserable. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important at all levels, even more so, actually, I believe at the elementary level, when the kids are younger and getting to know us and have that contact. If they're used to seeing that all through their school careers, then it's a little more of a natural thing,
Right.
And when they're forming opinions of the police and stuff like that, to have those positive interactions at a younger age, I think is really important as well.
Yeah, it's similar in the role of a school administrator too, right? Like I found times as a principal, if I'm engaged with kids and they see me all the time and they recognize like that's a good person, he cares, he's trying to keep me safe, and then you come into a volatile situation, I do think it helps diffuse instead of escalate, right? And we hear too often how the police show up and people get scared and nervous, and I think the fact that you guys are in our schools and they see you just walking around and it's a common thing, really, really important. So I do really appreciate the ways in which our local police departments just engage with kids and walk around. Like you said, of course, it's important to know the building. It's important for in an emergency to get somewhere quickly and efficiently, but the relationships are a huge part of what we do. And
if I may, Dr. Bauer. Oh,
of course, please go ahead.
I was just going to say with that, another thing that's very nice and I've experienced firsthand is that the administrators and the police and Mr. Rohn's staff as well, we all work cooperatively together. And when the students see that, it brings, I don't want to say empowerment, but it shows that the police are working with these groups. People recognize us as someone they can trust, as they trust the school administrators. People then also see the school administrators as people of authority who work closely with the police. So I can say in the last 15 years or so that we have been more present in the schools, it has actually become of great value to the police, at least.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective because it is important. It's important to, like, as a principal, police come in and be like, why don't we walk together? And, I would encourage our administrators to do that. When Chief Troxel or Officer Whistler come into your building, like, go for a walk so people see you together, because that is really an important part of the student perspective. All right, we'll shift topics here a little bit. And Mr. Gilmer, I assume it was, put something there in the chat. So I want to remind anyone who's watching this live, if you're just kind of paying attention to this conversation, if you have follow-up questions, ask those questions and we can bring those forward in this conversation. If not, I'm happy to carry the conversation, but one of the objectives here is to engage the community. So please, if you have a question or a follow-up, or one of our panelists say something that you're like, oh, what about this? Please feel free to put that in the chat and we'll try our best to answer it. All right, I'll go to a slightly more challenging question here. And one thing that I think we deal with in the schools that is frustrating for parents and community members is our limitations or restrictions due to privacy, right? So something happens in the school and right away they want details. They want to know what happened, why did it happen, what was the consequence, who was involved. And we are often in a position where I feel like we can't share that information. It's ongoing police investigation. We can't get in the way of that. I do think there's a perception that that's an excuse for us, right? Like, oh, you're just going to use the police as an excuse. But really, like, I will communicate, or Brandon will, with our police departments and say, do we have permission to investigate now? Because we don't want to meddle or muddle in your investigation. So I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to take this one close first. Feel free to raise your hand, whether it's Brandon, it's Chief Troxel, Officer Whistler. But
I'll jump in.
All right. So what are the challenges that you guys face when it's a school matter, but it's two adolescents in the building that, let's say, it was a fight and it was a verbal altercation that turned physical, and people want to know what the heck happened. Go ahead, Chief. Take it away.
So There's so many nuances that go along with this in this day and age. It's a benefit and a curse with social media and the instant communications we have nowadays. We didn't have that when we were younger. And I know people want that information fast. And I think it's important that we collaborate and work to at least let the parents and the students know that the situation's controlled and everything's safe. That's the important information to get out right away. And I think everybody can agree on that. But once you get beyond that, there's so many things that come into play logistically. And I know people, we get it as well, think it's an excuse. Even if people are looking for information on something not related to the schools, and even if it's not a juvenile, like people legally have rights to have certain information protected. There's certain ways we have to do things. There's certain things that we're allowed to say and not allowed to say by law when it comes to putting out legal information, because people do have rights to have privacy to some extent over their lives and what happens in their lives. And I won't even go down the rabbit hole of expungements and how criminal court records work. But the big thing for us when an incident occurs at the school is we want to get it right. And we want to get it right the first time. And investigations, it's not like CSI on TV. It's not all solved in 45 minutes. Stuff doesn't happen instantaneously. People need to be interviewed. A lot of times the location of that, maybe we're able to do it right at the school. Sometimes we might have to ask people to come back to the police station, depending on what the incident was. There's a program within Montgomery County that's utilized by the district attorney's office, which provides guidance for all the police departments, called Mission Kids, where juveniles can be interviewed by forensic examiners trained to interview juveniles, and all the involved parties are able to sit in and watch that interview. So the young person only has to go through reiterating the story one time, as opposed to being interviewed by multiple different people or entities that all need something different. So that way they only have to talk it and go through it once. There's protections, even in the criminal court system. If we're charging somebody criminally, the documentation, if it's a juvenile, we're only allowed to use the initials. We can't even put out the names. And I know a lot of people in this day and age, because of that instant information and everything's at their fingertips, they want to know all the details right away. And sometimes that's, number one, it's just not possible because we don't have all the details right away. And number two, we have responsibilities, not only as the police, but you as school administrators, to make sure that we have our facts straight before we start putting out information. Because once you put it out there, because it is out there to everybody right away, if it's not right, it's really hard to go back and convince somebody that, oh, we made a mistake, or, oh, we didn't have all this information that we now have. So now the way we're doing things has changed. And then all the other innuendo comes in about, well, why are you changing things? Why is this now this way when we thought it was going to be this way? So we really have to work all the time in everything we do nowadays in law enforcement, in tempering what do we put out and how quickly do we put it out, so the community at least has some information that they can feel reassured about what's going on, is my concern. Letting everybody know we've got this, everything's safe, and balancing that with everybody wants all the juicy details.
Yeah.
Which, that's for the news to figure out and what we can do. And we can do that through press releases and other officially released information. But for us, we have to protect those who need protected. We have legal obligations to protect certain information for everybody that's involved in an incident. And then we also have to ensure that we're doing everything properly and in the right order, that we can get the outcome we need to get, whatever that may be, based on proper information and the proper procedure to do things. Yeah. And a lot of that's very specifically written out through our laws and through our guidelines with the courts about how we have to handle these things. And we all know sometimes the process doesn't work real fast. So the thing that we're concerned about from our end, working fast, is the public safety issue, making sure that we make sure in working with you guys that whatever situation is going on, is mitigated to the point that it's not a danger to anybody else, and now we can sort things out. And I think so long as we work on making sure everybody understands, we're going to get that information to you as soon as humanly possible, but then give us time to make sure we have everything done correctly and we have all the proper information that we need to give you the proper information. I think at this point, especially in this school district, how collaboratively everybody works, and people should recognize maybe it's not as fast as they want it to be, but people are eventually going to get the information we're allowed to give them. And personally, I would want that information to be correct as opposed to fast.
Yeah, I think what some people don't realize is, when we have information to share, so schools are governed by, I know police departments have their own version of this, but we're governed by FERPA, which is the Family Education Right to Privacy Act. And so there are restrictions. If it is something that is in a student's file, it's protected, right? So, and a discipline record is protected. That is, there's privacy rights. Nobody else can know anything about that other than the parents and guardians, right? So you guys have your own version. So when we're trying to share information, we not only have that lens, but we try to have your lens too. And I'll take a screenshot and send it to Chief Troxel and say, are you okay with this statement? Is this accurate? And you guys will get back to us and say, yep, we're good with that. So then we can say on behalf of Talmadge Township Police Department and the North Bend School District, here's what we say. So that's definitely a challenge. I don't know if Mr. Rohn or Officer Whistler want to comment on, sometimes we have jurisdiction challenges between school districts and police departments, right? Like, is it a school matter? Is it a community matter? And how do we work through those nuances? I know that's a pretty hard question. But sometimes, and I'm sure police departments have this with one another too. Sometimes it's like, is that ours? Is it yours? Who's supposed to take care of this issue? I don't know if either of you want to speak to that.
I'll speak to the school district aspect because, we cross 6 municipalities and it's like, okay, a student may have reported something in school, but did it actually occur in school? If it did not occur in school, then which jurisdiction did it occur in? And then we reach out and start the investigative process with that jurisdiction where the incident occurred, even though it's being reported at school. And there are some times where maybe there's multiple locations where a situation or incident has taken place, and we have to work with multiple jurisdictions. And we do that in conversation and keeping everybody in the loop. I generally try to kind of be the glue to some degree of what was reported to us and then passing that information off to the initial jurisdiction where it occurred. And then maybe that jurisdiction is coming to school or going to the home. And so we navigate those waters pretty delicately, but also I think pretty effectively based off the relationships and the collaboration that has been here, before I got here and certainly continuing to evolve every day because we're speaking again, just about every day for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the wrinkles or nuances that I think maybe people don't understand is, so if I'm a police officer in Upper Gwinnett and it involves a student at, say, Pembroke or Gwinnett Square, it's likely that whether it happens in the community, in the school, or on a bus, it's in my jurisdiction. One of the fun little wrinkles in the high school is if something happens on a bus, they serve the entire school district, right? So if something occurs on one of our buses, a lot of times we have to look up GPS location, where did it happen? Because it could be in Montgomery Township, it could be in Talmenson, it could be Lansdale Borough, it could be Hatfield, it could be Upper Gwinnett, right? So it's all about where did the incident occur and how do we manage that? So I'll jump top. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I may, one of the nice things is very frequently the school does involve the police in things that may not be police matters, and equally the police involve the school in things that may not directly be school matters. And while we can't relay information back and forth, that ability to work together is very helpful to us, because there are a lot of things that sometimes when it's not a police matter, but an officer in a uniform is involved and sitting with a security officer, sitting with an administrator, it brings that extra added seriousness to the matter. And by the same token, when there's a police matter that sometimes we can have that conversation in a school, it's an excellent neutral ground. So really that cooperative relationship is invaluable, whether or not it's directly a police matter, directly a school matter, or we are working together to resolve any issues or make the schools a little bit better.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because that is something I did not write down to cover today, but it is absolutely crucial to our relationship. So there have been times, Brandon, I'm sure you would say the same, where something's reported in the school or we hear something and I'm not sure, is this a police matter? Is it not? And I can say without exception, in the police departments that serve our school district, I feel completely comfortable picking up the phone and calling. I'll use Chief Tierney in Hatfield as an example. And I'll call Chief Tierney and I'll say, hey, this is what we have going on. I'm not sure if you guys would want us to report this or not. What do you think? And he will advise me as superintendent or Brandon as a director of security, right? And he'll say, you know what, call that in. And then I'll hang up the phone, I'll dial 911 and we'll call it in, right? So it's a lot of collaboration and partnership. And we're also able to call the police and just say, hey, can you come over and meet with these students and talk about what could happen here? And it's not a police report. It's not a police record, but it's just collaboration and working together. So I really, really appreciate that perspective there, Officer Whistler, because it's not something I had written down, but it's so important and crucial to our relationships. Thank you.
Dr. Bauer, if I may, I think you're talking a lot about communication, and I think it's important to note that there are two of us within the district, myself and Frank Whalen, who have access to county radio to be able to communicate directly to our municipal partners and the county for day-to-day operations, which we don't do a lot of, but certainly for incidents or calls of service, where we're able to get information to our local partners in real time. Certainly we can pick up the phone and dial 911, but we also have the capability to bypass that and really get to that officer in the car in the community who may be around the corner or around a couple corners, and be able to give them real-time information. So we do have that capability when we talk about how much communicating we do and its effectiveness. I think it's important for the community to know that we do have direct ties and access to the Department of Public Safety Emergency Services to coordinate efforts.
Yeah. Also a great point. And that was a process that occurred a couple of years ago so that we could be on radio with the police departments and communicate with them, just a couple of us in the school district. So really appreciate that. Mrs. Diffley chimed in there, as did Ms. Hartman. Thank you both for engaging. I appreciate it. And Mrs. Diffley, I knew you were kidding. Totally thought of that as a joke. But yeah, so it's really about collaborating, working together, trying to do what's best for kids. But obviously within the confines and the structures of the laws and school code. Another thing that popped into my head there was when Mrs. Diffley said, snitches get ... Right. So kids these days, they are afraid. They don't want to be seen as a snitch. They don't want to be seen as a tattler. And the thing that pops into my head that we didn't used to have back in the day was Safe to Say. And Safe to Say, it was an initiative years ago from I believe the district attorney's office, or the attorney general, office. And I have found, I'm not sure that all superintendents would say the same, but I have found it to be an incredible resource in North Penn. And you might think with 13,000 kids and all of their parents and guardians that we would get false tips. We would get things that waste our time. And for once in a while, we do get a tip that's like, okay, Johnny doesn't like having too much homework. But for the most part, the tips that come into the school district, they're anonymous and they are worthwhile and they help with community policing, for lack of better phrasing. We actually had a tip come in last night that I read. I was on my way home from work. I got a emergency tip. I read it. Officer Roan here sent me a text. I'm on it. A police department, I won't say where, went to the home, and the allegation was suicidal ideation. And Mr. Roan said to me when he called me later that night, that safe to say tip saved a life tonight. That child admitted that they had a plan, and we're going to act this evening. So either Officer Whistler or Chief Troxel, if either of you want to comment on your experiences with safe to say and how you received the tip, go ahead, Officer Whistler, take it away.
If I may, to the point you just made, and in accordance with the last part of the conversation, what I think is important to point out is while the public hears about and wants to know the information on some of the things that occur in the school, especially when when it engages or they observe it, things are witnessed. What's important that nobody sees things like you just described, and that happens sadly a lot more than we want it to, where something gets reported and it gets brought to us, brought to you, we work together, and a life could be saved, or a home situation could be made better, or a student suffering from some other issue gains the help they need. And none of that is ever released. So I think it's important for the public to know that there is so much more that occurs behind the scenes, and that information is protected for those people. But we are constantly doing things, and without sounding to disregard them, but we're constantly handling them, cleaning them up, and getting the resources we need to the people that need them. And nobody ever sees that happen. So, in appreciation of security of the administration, that stuff does happen. And it's a huge help for us because the school being involved, taking these reports and having the Safe to Say program actually allows us to prevent a lot of other much worse and or much more involved police activity.
Yeah. Thank you, Officer Whistler. Another example I'll share is we got a tip the other night. I'm going to say, Brandon, it was around midnight. And we got a tip, and it was a similar tip that my friend, I'll just use a generic name here, but my friend Sally mentioned that she might hurt herself. And we sent police to the home and in the middle of the night. And it turned out that the family had moved. Right. So Brandon is on the phone. We don't currently have the address for the family. And Brandon is on the phone for over an hour, calling mom, calling dad, calling the house, calling mom, calling dad, until he finally gets a hold of someone and is able to determine that the child is safe, right, in the middle of the night. And these are all things that people don't know go on. So I really appreciate that perspective. Chief Troxel, if you want to chime in on Safe to Say, you're welcome to, or I can switch topics. I was going to jump to bus patrol next.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick before we switch up to piggyback on what Officer Whistler said. I think the fact that it is so successful, and I have to agree with you. There's the program is valid in a lot of different ways, and we don't see a lot of those false alarms. And if we do, that's just part of things too. But to both of your points, I think it's really, really important that people know that we do work hard to keep it anonymous, like we say we're going to. If these calls come in through Safe to Say, and the next day everybody in the school district knows, so-and-so called about so-and-so, and the police were at their house, and nobody would want to use it. And the fact that people do use it, and that there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that the community doesn't know about, it's a good thing they don't know about it, because we're maintaining that anonymity. So I think this format's good for any of the parents in the school district who are listening to know that yes, we do pay attention to this line. It gets immediate attention until we make sure everything's okay or everything's safe. And we're going to run down all those leads and be handling all those things. And you may never hear about that, but it's happening. I won't say regularly. It's not like it's a daily thing, but it does happen, I think, more often than a lot of people realize. And I think it's important that we maintain that anonymity, because that's what encourages the students to call in. If they knew that didn't exist, they wouldn't want to use this system. And I think it's important that people know that it is being used, and we have a lot of successful outcomes because of it.
Yeah, no, great points. Thank you, Chief. We do have a comment in here from Erin, where she mentioned, when will North Penn be speaking about a police force? I will say that that's not currently on the agenda, if you will, but I do think it's important that We do have 2 sworn police officers. They do not carry weapons. I mean, that is something we have discussed, certainly. But our police departments have door access. They can get into our buildings. They are, as we've discussed, they're regularly in our buildings on a almost daily basis. Some of our buildings, it's absolutely daily that they're in our buildings. But we do not have armed police in our schools. So we have an enriched relationship with our police departments that I feel is second to none. I really, really value the ways in which we work together. You guys call us or me or Brandon, and it is reciprocated. So it is not something that the North Penn School District has done yet to date, and perhaps it could occur in the future. But for right now, we lean on our security department and not only our radio communications, but our cell phone communications and so forth, and just try to keep those lines open. So thank you for that. I know I said I would keep you guys for about 30 minutes. It's been 35, but people are just starting to kind of engage there in the chat. If you have a couple more minutes, I did want to kind of hit on bus patrol, just because that's a new thing this year for our municipalities. And I said publicly, I think at our last Safe Schools meeting, that we had over 600 violations in the first month. The second month, I'm sad to say, Brandon, wasn't any better. Actually, the second month, we had 800 violations in the North Penn School District of someone violating. Now, those are violations that were recorded, not necessarily citations that were issued. But the citations number, I think it's nearly 80%. So I don't know if Chief or Officer Whistler, if you'd like to comment on your experiences on your end. I don't know if the two of you are the ones watching the videos and issuing citations. But what have you seen on those videos that have resulted in, or what have you heard from people in your department who are looking at those videos about the types of violations we're seeing from those school bus cameras?
Chief, I have had some experience with it, unless you want to take the lead.
No, go ahead. You jump in first, and then I'll follow up if I have anything else.
So honestly, I think what's great about the program that's coming up is that the awareness is going out quickly. Unfortunately, the result of that is that some people are held accountable for the violations they commit. I have had the privilege with my chief of reviewing a lot of the violations that get sent to us. And what's interesting to understand is no computer system is flawless. It is a new program. It is working out the kinks. So that's why they're sent to us. Anything that occurs within Upper Gwyned's jurisdiction, we then review to say, yes, this is a violation. No, it isn't. And we try to objectively look at it. There are situations where somebody may not have known that that bus was stopped there because there was a tractor trailer in between, because there was something else going on the other side. There was a police car involved in something. So we look at that and we try to be understanding, while also realizing that our priority is the children. Our priority is the safety. So when we review them, we look at them, and then we either approve and say, you know what, this person absolutely did have time to stop, or no, this person didn't. What I really like about this opportunity to speak of it right now is to put the information out there, is to say the buses now have cameras on them. If you have the inkling that that stop sign might be out, before you're a safe distance past that school bus, stop. It's an extra 10, 15 seconds of your day, and it would behoove everybody to prevent that situation from becoming something where, best case scenario, somebody gets a citation. Worst case scenario, a child gets hurt. So the program itself, the goal of it is not to send out 800 violations. The goal of the program is to increase safety for the students, for our motoring traffic, and to make sure everybody gets to where they need to go safely.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. It is, I don't know if either of you are able to comment on, but I did say, and from speaking with other school districts that had the program last year, and then talking to Chief Duffy, he actually invited Brandon and I over to kind of see it on your end, to like watch the videos. And the most common violation, I was told, is when it is a 3 or 4 lane road and the buses stop. Let's say you're in the rightmost lane, because all of our stops are on the door side, which is not the case in all school districts, but I'm glad it is in North Penn. So the buses stop, the stop arm is out, the lights are flashing, and 2 lanes over, there's a lane separating, or 2 lanes separating. Let's say it's a 4 lane road, so there's 2 lanes on each side. The people in the right side, because there's a buffer lane, they think they can go. So they just keep going. And the only way that you can do that is if there's a median, like an actual barrier in between. So I know a lot of the violations, like if that stop arm is out and it's a 4-lane highway with no divider, you cannot go. And I know so unfortunately, it's a painful lesson to learn, but I would much rather someone be issued a citation than a child to get hurt. All right. So that ticket comes in the mail and then you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to do that. So consider this the notice that you cannot do that. Go ahead, Officer Whistler.
So if I may, Doctor, with that, you mentioned about the stop sign being out, as did I. And the other thing that it's important for people to understand is there are the flashing lights that preempt the stop sign. Those flashing lights are the warning that sign's coming out. The moment that sign starts moving is the time at which these cameras start taking effect. So while we're cautioning people about the stop sign itself, if those flashing lights are on, that school bus has come to a stop, that arm on the front of the bus starts moving, the stop sign starts moving, that's your cue to say, hey, you know what, I need to stop here. Not your cue to say, I'm going to accelerate past it and hope it doesn't catch me, because it does record before it goes by and in the back as well. So again, the goal of this is a preventative measure more so than an enforcement measure. Another thing I'd like to point out is the fines that come with it are not particularly inexpensive. However, they are less expensive than a observed school bus violation. As if I as an officer am out patrolling, I see a school bus violation, that is a higher fine. It is also a significant more number of points and a suspension on your license. So while these stop signs are generating citations, they are a lesser citation that will not affect your license, should not affect your insurance, to the best of my knowledge.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. I'll have one more topic here. We've kind of covered, I had a list of like 10 or 15 things, and I think we've hit on all of them in some way. I'll go to Chief. Chief, the Talmenson Township Police Department utilizes our facilities at sometimes for drills that don't involve the school district. So I know that you guys are in here, and state police actually use North Penn facilities as well. So can you talk a little bit about times where you guys are in here when we're not, and ways in which you utilize the school district to help train and all those things?
Absolutely. And we really appreciate the partnership we have with you to be able to do that, because there's important training that we like to conduct and do with our officers that not only benefit the school district, but benefit the community in general and all the officers. We're in there using your wrestling room and wrestling mats to do our defensive tactics training with our officers for how to get people under control, just using, hands-on techniques. We regularly come in and do our active threat and active shooter response training with our officers. And what better place to be able to go in there and do it than in the actual school locations where we might have to be doing these things, where we can go in and work hallways and get into rooms and play with the angles and look at some of the different nuances about how these responses and scenarios would go, and set up scenarios for our officers in all the different schools. A lot of times we do that over the summer when nobody's in there, because we have a little bit of a better chance to get in. But sometimes it is, over a weekend or even an evening where sometimes students are in there, they go wandering by the gym and we're all in there in our athletic gear doing defensive tactics training, wrestling around with each other in the wrestling room, and somebody will go by and then stop and come back and it's like, is that the cops in there? And we end up having a little conversation, and this is what we're doing. And they hang out and watch a little bit. And again, that makes some of those relationships, but we're certainly, aside from during the workday or even when school's actively running, we're in the school doing trainings and utilizing the facilities. And that's all because of the great relationship we have with you guys. It's a phone call away. Hey, we'd like to do this, or we have this coming up. Do you have a spot in the facility we can use for this? And the answer has never, ever been no, which is awesome.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely vital. And we certainly benefit, right? You guys, it might be a Sunday and you guys are in here and we are not, but certainly it helps keep our students and staff safer because you're doing so. So I love it. All right. Next question, because we were talking about drills. and it's kind of related. But Brandon, you facilitate drills in all of our schools, of course, and we have fire drills, we have weather drills, we have intruder drills, we have all kinds of drills, and we also have large-scale evacuation drills to off-site locations, right? So let's say there's a significant bomb threat, there's a chemical spill, there's a something in the area where they say, look, you got to get out of that building because something's going on. What are ways in which you engage with our local emergency personnel, whether it's police, ambulance, fire, to help facilitate some of those things? Or maybe they come just to observe and offer advice, but ways in which you engage emergency personnel.
Yeah, so that happens pretty regularly, and I'll speak to this past summer. We had a tabletop exercise where all 6 municipalities had an opportunity, along with the school district, and we really worked through an incident with the help of the county, kind of building a incident or a situation, and we walked through the response because between police, fire, EMS, and the school district, we're all going to be there. We will all have decisions that we have to make respectively to our roles within the organization. And so it was really great to get all 6 municipalities together. We had a representation from police. We had some fire marshals, fire chiefs, emergency managers there. And we really walked through that incident and collectively understand all of our roles, and whether it's at the high school, and Townsend's the lead, and Upper Gwinnett and Lansdale and Hatfield are coming to support. So we were able to do that. We also, when we do some of our building specific drills, we always invite our first responder partners to come observe the drill so they can see what it actually could look like when they show up, depending on the situation. So they will come and watch that and get an idea. Okay, during a lockdown, like this is what I'm possibly going to see when I walk in the building. Right, hallway should be clear. Students and staff should be in a secure location, and then also participating in evacuation. Getting students out of the building, and maybe we have to cross a roadway. There's a particular school where we have to use 3 of the 6 municipalities to be able to maneuver students around, and we've done that year over year. So our law enforcement partners are engaged in those exercises and drills on a routine basis. Again, whether it's sitting at a tabletop or participating in a drill or observing, just so that they get an understanding of what it could possibly look like when they arrive and enter our building for a particular situation. So we do that pretty regularly. Most recently, we had our fire departments from the 6 municipalities come walk through a building so that they can understand, okay, if I turn down this hall, this is going to take me to this location, and where's the fire hookup on this floor, and like all those kind of things, right? So it was Townsend, Lansdale, Upper Gwinnett. Again, just making sure that our communication stays strong, our relationships stay strong, because the time in which we need to have that communication, those relationships can't be during the situation, right? Those relationships have to be built already, and understanding who I need to call for what, and then what resources are coming and how we're going to manage that situation with all the moving parts and the decisions that have to get made.
Great. Thank you for that. And thank you for orchestrating those things. All right. So we're almost 50 minutes in, and I had said 30. So I apologize for keeping you longer, but it is pretty clear that we may need to have episode 2, because the comments are flying in. There's questions about fighting. There are questions about some of the access to the buildings. So some things we can follow up on. I am hoping to, in the future, really put this out well in advance, and maybe we can start to get some of the questions via email, and be prepared to offer some of those questions up to you. But you guys have been wonderful. Mr. Rohn, Chief Troxel, Officer Whistler, I really want to thank you for your time. But more than anything, thank you for your service to our kids and our community. Try to keep everybody safe. It does take a village, and there are things, right? We have 13,000 students. There are events that we deal with every day, that you deal with every day outside of our schools. But I just think that the opportunity to work with all of you, and collaborate and try to get better every day is really, really appreciated. So thanks for joining us. If you're willing, We'll get you back on here for episode 2. Bob might cut us off here. You might say, Todd, what did you do to me? But if you're willing, we'd love to have you back and answer more questions, because as we often say in our Safe Schools Committee, the work of school safety is never done. We do have a Safe Schools meeting on Monday night. And I just want to thank you. So thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. Always up for part 2.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Bob. We're signing off here. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Community Conversations. And it sounds like we're going to have our school security and police departments on again sometime real soon. I want to wish everybody who celebrates a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you don't celebrate, I wish you a restful week. And we'll see everybody back here on December 2nd.